This video does not endorse, promote, or glorify any form of illegal or harmful activity. Hey guys, young Psychonaut here, back at it again with another video, and today we have another tier list for you guys. But today we're just going to do all the different things you can do on shrooms. So all the activities and how fun they are to do on shrooms, in my opinion. Of course, this will be very personal, especially with psychedelics. I feel like people are very particular about what they do like and what they don't like. And also for me personally, it has changed a lot since, for example, the last time I did this kind of tier list with another substance, 2-FDCK. Check out that video if you're interested. But yeah, so a lot of these things will also change pretty rapidly depending on like the types of psychedelics that I consume, or like just like how I feel at the moment in the year basically. But today we're just going to focus on shrooms to make it a little bit more specific. Also, I'm just going to say like I am going to talk about lower dose and higher dose, because I feel like a lot of these things can be fun in lower doses but are kind of jarring in higher doses. But I'll just explain while doing the tier list. Okay, so first of all, consuming cannabis, it's pretty high. It's not going to be S tier. It's going to be A tier for me. I love the combination of shrooms and cannabis, but the fact that I'm not putting it in S tier is because the higher the shroom dose gets, the less it is fun for me to consume cannabis. As in, if I'm really doing like a 2-gram plus dose, like a trip dose, often I'll try to wait with cannabis at least like 2 or 3 hours after taking the shrooms, just so that basically I don't get like this overwhelming physical anxiety, I would say. But if I'm doing lower amounts of shrooms, I love smoking cannabis with that. I think it's a really nice combination. And yeah, if the shroom dose is not too high, I would say cannabis for me with shrooms is really nice. Video games for me are actually going to be pretty low. I would say around C tier maybe. I like playing video games. I like playing video games baked. I like playing video games on DXM and on 2F. But honestly, when it comes to psychedelics, it is just a little bit too much focus for me. With psychedelics, I like to let my mind run loose a little bit more. And when I'm gaming, I'm just too focused on trying to be good in the game, or just trying to get somewhere or do something. It's very like, I wouldn't say linear, but it's very much like your mind is processing things in a very particular way. And that is not really the vibe that I'm looking for when I'm tripping or I'm taking psychedelics. So for me, video games are a little bit lower. Not that I'm saying that it can be fun to indulge yourself in the video game, but for me, it's just too mentally jarring to really like enjoy it. So that's also where the movie comes in. I would put this in S tier, maybe A tier, because I feel like I've been really starting to enjoy watching movies on psychedelics more and more. Maybe it's not going to be an S tier because, again, when I'm doing very high doses of shrooms or like real like trip doses of shrooms, a movie can also be a little bit too like confining for the mind, in my opinion. It can be almost a little bit like you're forced to have a specific thinking pattern. But again, when I'm doing lower amounts of shrooms, like half a gram, something like that, especially when consuming cannabis, a movie is just amazing, especially a movie that I've seen already, so there's no like anxiety for what's to come. I just know what's going to happen. But then I can just really enjoy the cinematography, the story, and just the visuals, etc. are mainly what I look for in a movie when I'm taking some psychedelics. So for example, the new Dunes films are, for example, perfect for low dose shrooms for me, because they have just these amazing cinematography, these amazing visuals and colors, and I think the shrooms just enhance that in general. Okay, I would say sex for me is actually going to go in, it's either going to be B tier or A tier. It's also, again, depending on the dose. I would say higher dose is B tier, lower dose is maybe A tier, but in general, I would say for me, psychedelics do not really increase my enjoyment of sex. I would say for me, psychedelics often introduce just a little bit of that anxiety into the bedroom where I'm just not really able to get into the flow as quickly or as easily. I'm going to be honest, I haven't really tried sex on really high doses of psychedelics as I'm often doing these high doses alone, but I could imagine it just being a little bit too much mental comprehension, which then results also in me just not being able to get hard properly, etc. There's just a little bit too much going on, so I can't really relax fully into the moment. So for me, for example, DXM or just cannabis on its own, that is perfect for sex. But when it comes to psychedelics, it's only fun when it's like a very low dose for me. And it's just kind of like this little extra spice, but not that I'm really like tripping in while having sex. Working out, I'm just gonna put it D tier, and not because it's not fun or it's not possible, it's just that I don't do it purely based on the fact that you can really injure yourself when working out while tripping. Like if you're just doing a microdose of shrooms and you're going to the gym, that is totally fine. I would say if you can handle that, that will be totally fine. I'm really talking about when it's a little bit higher dose where maybe your bodily feelings are not really well aligned with what's actually physically happening. So then maybe you don't perceive a certain pain, or you're overstretching, or like you're getting into really weird positions, etc., which could harm you. So I would just say generally, if you're doing substances, don't go work out. I mean, it could be fun, but the chance of you actually getting an injury, etc., is pretty high. So I would just disadvise doing that. But again, I'm not putting it in D tier because it's extremely not fun or anything like that. It's just I would recommend against it, and I wouldn't do it. Okay, I would say YouTube for me also is going to be maybe B tier. It really depends on the content, but if it's comedy, that in general will be very tolerable for me when it comes to shrooms, especially lower doses. I like just watching YouTube comedy things, like could be stand-up, could just be something fun, but as the dose increases, it becomes less and less fun to watch YouTube, in my opinion, because again, this when it comes to like watching media, so it could be video games or YouTube or movies, when it comes to higher doses of psychedelics, I just tend to like feel more confined in my headspace. I feel more like I'm kind of forced into a specific headspace, where I would just more like to have a more open headspace when I'm really tripping. So that is also where listening to music comes in. Again, because there's no visual component, it kind of gives my mind the opportunity to just find its own visual interesting targets in the room. And for me, this really increases the vibe, but it also really increases my sense of like awe and like beauty, and just having a really amazing trip for me is mainly due to listening to good music that really complements the trip, and where I just have to listen. I don't have to look specifically at one thing. So that's why it's S tier for me. I mean, if you have a good playlist, or if you have the right type of ambient music or whatever, this can like elevate your trip so much into like really, I would say, also like philosophical mind frames, where you're maybe like really having some good insights about your life and things like that. And mainly when I'm watching a movie on Psychs or YouTube or video games, these moments tend to not really happen as much. Going out to eat is going to be D tier for me. I would say when it comes to psychedelics, I'm in general very wary of other people while I'm on psychedelics. Like I can be on psychedelics with my best friend who also does a lot of substances. So I can be on psychedelics with my partner who also knows what's going on, etc., and knows me. But when it comes to like just random people or like even acquaintances or things like that, generally I do not like being with people that are not on substances or on psychedelics. It just gives me this kind of like social anxiety of, oh, what if this is going to make me behave weird, or what if they, I don't know, start to mess with me because I'm on psychedelics, or like anything like that, where it kind of, annoys me that I'm not in this pristine space where I can just do whatever and not have to think about like social niceties and social interactions. And I think for a lot of people, this can also be like where they have their worst bad trips, when like a lot of people are coming to the Netherlands in Amsterdam to do shrooms in Amsterdam. And honestly, I'm going to say that's a terrible idea. You're in a city that you don't know with a bunch of like, I would say, values and interactions and just culture that you don't know, in a city that is, I mean, you can get run over by a tram. There's so many bikes riding around that can hit you. Like you can fall into a canal. You can, like, there's literally hundreds of ways this can go wrong when you're doing it in public. I'm not saying you can't do shrooms in public. I'm just saying doing shrooms in a place where there's a bunch of people you don't know, or just in a circumstance where you don't really know what's going on or what the preferred cultures or whatever, it's just like a recipe for disaster basically. And I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying people don't have fun on it. I'm just saying for me, it is not something that is fun or that I like. And it's also something that I would generally say you should avoid. But again, this is just a pro tip from me, from someone who has never had a crazy negative interaction on psychedelics. So that could be part of it, why I don't have that. Like sometimes I see story times of people on YouTube taking shrooms and like going out for trick-or-treating or something. I'm like, that doesn't sound fun at all. It just sounds like you're giving yourself kind of an induced anxiety. But again, that may be just me and my default level of anxiety kind of shining through that. Okay, so cycling. I'm going to say also B or C tier. Especially on higher doses of shrooms, I think cycling and things like that can be pretty difficult, as in maybe you're not looking at traffic correctly, or like you're not seeing another cyclist or whatever. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. I have cycled on psychedelics. It's not a big problem. It's also not that fun because, okay, so if you're taking like a very, very low dose, you're just barely noticing, I think cycling can be very fun because you're still like capable of just correctly cycling and following traffic rules, etc. But if you're like really tripping, I would disadvise against like going out and going on a mode of transport yourself, because yeah, again, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. You can fall, you can bump into someone else, you can be hit by a car, you can hit someone else. Yeah, there's a lot of contingencies when it comes to like moving at a certain speed while on psychedelics. Okay, eating is going to be S tier. When I do shrooms, especially higher amounts, there's like just this overwhelming sense of like intense flavor experience. Like when I eat a raspberry, for example, that one is just always amazing because it is sweet, it is sour, it is tangy, and it just explodes in your mouth with flavor and intensity. And even like I often just eat very, very small amounts of things and just enjoy the flavor of it. Not really eating to get nourishment, but more to like experience the senses in a way. So for example, like chocolate or raspberry, or basically a lot of fruits and berries I love eating while on shrooms. Yeah, those kinds of things I think are the best. Okay, so meditate. I'm going to put it in A tier. It is actually really fun to meditate on shrooms, especially if you're pretty well established at meditation. It can be very, very easy to like get into a space of ego disillusion, of like ego death, of feeling like you're just a thing, not really person with a gender, with a nationality, with a political compass, with like all these different properties that you assign to yourself are in the end kind of social constructs. And shrooms, for me, they really, especially in higher doses, they really start to break down the fact that these are not fundamental truths of the universe, but they are socially constructed. And the fact that a piece of paper tells you your nationality doesn't mean that fundamentally the universe understands that you have a nationality. That's just ink on a paper, or that's just, So in the end, your water molecules are not going to act differently in your body because you're a specific nationality, the quantum wave functions are not going to be different because you are a specific gender or whatever. I'm not saying that I don't believe in gender or nationality. I'm just saying that fundamentally, physically, the universe does not have these concepts. These are human-made concepts that we, through culture, get impregnated on so strongly that we start to actually think that that is fundamentally true. And I know that this is a little bit of a philosophical tangent, but what I'm trying to say is that shrooms really help me see this more clearly in the moment, and therefore also make meditation much easier and deeper, and yeah, I would say just more powerful. Also, meditating after I did shrooms, like the days after, also really helps solidify like the neuroplasticity, I would say. Okay, going to a museum, kind of the same thing as going out to eat, just too much people, too much going on. I would just have too much anxiety basically to really enjoy the experience. Okay, so party, yeah, this is kind of the same thing for me. So for me, partying is just too many people, too many social interactions, too many niceties, too many things you have to think about. I wouldn't really be able to enjoy myself while taking shrooms at a party. No. For me, psychedelics are not really a party thing. I know a lot of people who like parties, psychedelic things, but for me it's just too much. Conversate can be pretty good, but it's not that good, so I'm just gonna put it in A tier. I also just like really tripping on my own, but if I'm taking lower amounts of shrooms, conversation can be very fun because you're just like a little bit more goofy, a little bit more, yeah, it's just easier to get the conversation into a fun place, I would say. Okay, social media is going to be in D tier. I generally don't like social media at all, but especially on shrooms, it is just basically a recipe for you to feel really bad. Yes, there are of course positive things on social media, but they're so much outnumbered by negative things that it is almost impossible for you to do like shrooms and then only see fun positive things on social media while scrolling. Like, that is just probably not going to happen. There's probably going to be something that triggers you in some way or make you feel bad about yourself or just in general about the state of the world. There's just so much slop online, which is probably not going to be good for someone in a state of high neuroplasticity to consume like that kind of content. So I would just say, yeah, it's kind of ass. Like, making music on psychedelics, yeah, this is also going to be very controversial. I'm going to put it in D tier. When making music, especially when making beats, you're going to loop over that shit like hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times over the same few bars, and that just gets so jarring after even a few minutes of it. Like, for me, I just need a sober mind basically to do good music production and just be focused and also not be like annoyed by the fact that you're just looping over the same thing again and again. Also, I feel like it's just too much of an adrenaline kick for me to do while doing psychedelics. Okay, interacting with pets, definitely S tier. Love petting my cat while I'm on shrooms. I love the fact that he also seems to notice that I'm on something, and often he kind of not takes advantage of it, but he kind of like acts a little different, and that's fun in some ways. Like, I don't know, just having a fun play thing. Okay, so while I was talking about that, my cat just went on the counter and I had to get him off. So he knows when I'm talking about him. But yeah, anyways, interacting with pets, goated while on tripping or on shrooms. And my cat is really chill, so he's not going to make the trip more difficult in any way. Okay, again, martial arts, same rationale as working out. I'm not saying you can do martial arts while having low amounts of psychedelics in your system. A lot of people actually do this, but there is a very large risk, again, when you're doing higher amounts, that you're just going to make bad decisions, or you're not going to be noticing when something goes wrong. Maybe you're underestimating your own strength and you're injuring other people while training for martial arts. Those are all kinds of things where you just don't want to get in that situation, I would say. Like a microdose, sure, that could be okay, but I avoid it at all costs because I just don't want to be responsible for someone's injury or my own injury because I just couldn't wait before taking psychedelics. Like, I don't know, there's obviously going to be people people in the comments who are martial artists who like doing microdosing. Power to you, that is cool as hell. For me, it's just not worth the risk of like, because I'm doing martial arts with other people, so you're also responsible for their safety, I would say. Cooking is going to be A tier. I like cooking on psychedelics, but if the dose gets so high that the visuals are overwhelming, it is very difficult to actually cook good because you're not visually like inspecting the food as you should be. If there's like a bunch of visuals, a bunch of like things moving or colors, it is pretty hard to determine if it's ready or if it's undercooked. Or so in general, I would say cooking is fun. I like cooking on psychedelics, but if the visuals get too intense, it does get pretty hard. So that's why I'll put it in A tier. Gardening, I would say on psychedelics, I often don't like gardening too much. It can be fun on lower doses, but on higher doses, it often just annoys me that I am doing like a very specific task. I don't know. For me, like I've said a bunch of times in this video, I really like having an open psychedelic headspace. So for me, that means not doing one specific thing, but just like putting on some good music and just letting the experience happen. Okay, and hiking or being outdoor, I would say this is also pretty fun. More fun so than, for example, cycling, just because you can just take it a little bit more easy. You can just like chill a little bit more. You know, this really depends on how many people are around me while I'm hiking. Like if I'm in a very busy place, like a very busy forest, I would put it in B tier. But if you're like going on this like solo hike and just being out in nature and yeah, things like that, I would put it in A tier. It's pretty nice. There are, however, some things that I really like about indoor tripping that are just like amenities, like toilet, a fridge, running water, warmth, and a sofa to sit on. Like honestly, I do like those niceties when I'm tripping. So I have tripped outdoor, but yeah, you have to like really pack everything that you need to really have a chill trip when you're doing it outdoor, in my opinion. So yeah, guys, this was my tier list for what to like things to do on shrooms. As you can see, most things when it comes to like going somewhere where there are a lot of people or when it's like a lot of physical like strength needed, etc., then for me that's not really the vibe. But like some very open-ended things like listening to music, just like meditating, things like that, I love doing that on psychedelics and on shrooms. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.